Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satan and Coffee, the Wednesday edition. Hope everyone's doing well. Good to see everybody. Evie, Samael, Bible. So, I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all, in enjoying the hump day, the middle of the week of a pimple on my face, fortunately. So, we have a Baphomet based episode. It's been a minute since we've done, a Baphomet episode and kind of discussed Baphomet. Now, what we're going to be focusing on is Baphomet and the Black Tree. Um, now, most of us kind of look at the Tree of Life as something that's sacred. Most of us were, have always been told to kind of climb towards light, right? So, today what I'm going to kind of go through is kind of like the darkness aspect of things and why you have to kind of go through the darkness and adopt it in order to appreciate the light, right? um the Black Tree is kind of like what I would consider the infernal map of Baphomet. uh it's rooted um in death and crowned in fire. This is not about this episode is not about salvation. Um, this is about becoming monstrous enough to become whole. Okay. So the Black Tree is not a human made dogma, it's a living map of kind of infernal becoming. So, historical distortions with the Black Tree would be looking at the Kabbalah's Tree of Life, Ascension, Cliff Oath, Shadow Initiation. But the Black Tree is both at once, growth and decay intertwined. Okay, so the roots of the tree are death, the underworld, the ancestors, the void, the trunk, embodiment, living flesh, the struggle of incarnated existence. The branches, fire, ascent, expansion, sovereignty, the crown, eternal becoming, never complete, always burning. Right? So the way the tree survives storms, roots deeper into decay, while branches stretch higher into fire. Right? The Black Tree is immoral. It doesn't ask you to be good or evil. It asks you to be whole. Right? It is not um, kind of divided into the sense that people would normally look at, like the ideas of good and evil, or um, symmetrical growth of working through a process and then moving on to the next part like it's a video game. It doesn't work that way. It works very asymmetrically. Um, there isn't a necessary path to grow through on it. It is to understand that you simply exist in a place and are able to move when and how you see fit to different parts of the tree as you grow in life, as you develop, right? So that's kind of like what we're looking at. And when we look at the roots, right, we would say death, the underworld, ancestors, the void. We're not talking about the roots themselves, but what the tree is rooted in. I think one of the things that is kind of missed when we talk about life trees is we talk about the root systems, we talk about the branches, we talk about the trunk, we talk about all of that. But what is the tree rooted in, right? We skip over that part of things, generally speaking. And so in this, the black tree, it is important to understand what the tree is rooted in. And the tree is rooted in the dirt of the universe, so to speak, for as cheesy as that sounds. And I'm well aware that that sounds cheesy as fuck, but it is rooted in that. It is rooted in death, the underworld, the ancestors, and the void. That is what it is rooted in, not the root system itself. The root system itself is part of tree. It's part of the branching of the tree, just going downward instead of upward. As the tree itself grows and becomes taller, the root systems also become more profound, more locked in. They go deeper into the ground, right? If you look at, for example, the root systems of redwoods, I mean, they're shallow roots, but they can spread for miles, right? Like miles. Like you can, find roots from a tree that are miles away from where the tree is. So it's important to understand that not just the tree itself grows, not just the branches expand out, but so does the root system. It goes deeper and deeper. And we can look at that literally and we can look at that metaphorically in the sense that the more that we grow, right? It is essentially finished, yes. Just waiting to get published. That's it. Um, if you want a PDF version of it, I can, we can work something out, you know. Um, so I'm doing good, disciple. Um, so these roots, right? If we look at it metaphorically, in order for us to grow spiritually, in order for us to grow as spiritual beings, not only do we need to expand ourselves outward, honestly, for a PDF, like I would probably do the PDF at like $5. I mean, I would probably do like the book itself at $5, like a printed version of it, probably like maybe $8, but $5 for the PDF. I mean, I can say that out loud because, like, I mean, if anybody else wants a PDF, then $5. So if we think about a root system as our own spirituality, Maeve, hail, brother, welcome. As we look at the root system in ourselves, right? We don't just expand outward. We need to expand into ourselves. We need to understand the deeper aspects of who we are as people in order to truly grow spiritually. It's all good. It's all good. You're here, right? So, talking about Baphomet, right? So, I've always said this, that Baphomet is not a symbol, not just an idea. Baphomet is a living god of balance, is a living entity, the androgynous horned winged deity seated with the torch and serpents. Baphomet is the black tree given form. He is the monstrous balance that humanity fears. And I do say that humanity fears balance. It seems that as time goes on, society and humanity thrive off of drama. it's kind of horrible because I've always said that, like, life feels like high school, and it has never been more evident than it has been for the last 10 years that we are living in a perpetual high school mentality. There are cliques, there are people that hang out in those cliques, and then there are people that make fun of other cliques and attack them for being different, or attack them for being who they are, or attack them for whatever reason. We always find reasons to dehumanize each other and hate each other. And it is because of that perpetuant behavior that I find that we as human beings are incapable of existing in peace. We just don't know how to do it, or just don't want to do it. We, whether intentionally or unintentionally, perpetuate each other's behavior by feeding into it and always finding something to bitch about instead of living our lives and focusing on the now. We're always complaining about each other. And I feel that that's also another aspect of humanity that is broken, is we're worried about what we did yesterday, or what people think about what we did yesterday. We're worried about what's going to come tomorrow, or in 2 hours, or in 3 hours, or in 4 hours. But we'll find it so difficult to live in the now. Just now, right now, this moment. This moment right now that you are in is the only moment that you truly actually have. And it's fleeting. It's finite. It is here and it is gone. But it is only this moment, and it is only the now that you have. Can't go back to what's past. It's a memory, and most memories that we have are distortions of the past, preferable remembrances of things we wish had happened. We can't go forward because it hasn't happened yet. And what will be is dependent on what is. And if we don't focus and live in and on the now, we inevitably lose control, or what little perceivable control we truly have over what might be, by worrying about it. Because what we do in the now, right now, determines how the future will unfold, at least to a degree. And so I do say that society is fearful of balance. Because if you look at the past, the present, scale, if you live in the past, the scale tips this way. If you live in the future, try to live in the future, scale tips this way. But if you live in the now, have an even perspective of what was, what will be. And so I do believe that society fears balance. Again, disciple, read the room, please. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Nothing at all. Please stay on topic. please, like, ask questions like that in the comments, or something like that, like the comment section. It's distracting, friend. It is distracting and completely irrelevant to the conversation. So society has a problem with living in balance, a fear of living in balance, a fear of having a perspective. Now, going forward with this. Now, why monstrous, right? Because he unites what humans want separated: life, death, male, female, light, dark, angel, demon. Baphomet is inherently connected to the demonic, at least culturally speaking. But is Baphomet a demon? Or do we just call Baphomet a demon because that's what we've been taught? Is that remains of Abrahamic programming instilled in us? And I would say yes. Baphomet being associated exclusively to the demonic or the infernal is to say that there is a level of Abrahamic bias in our opinion of what the entity is and what the entity could be. And I feel that though, yes, there is definitely a connection to the infernal with Baphomet, it isn't exclusively infernality that Baphomet is connected to. Baphomet is, for all intents and purposes, what you need them to be in the moment that you need them. Baphomet is duality. Baphomet is the connecting of opposites. Baphomet is the spectrum of existence, all simultaneously at the same time, without break or separation. And I think that that is the difficult part for the mind to fathom and understand as a whole when it comes to Baphomet, because Baphomet isn't just male and female or light and dark, but rather the entire spectrum of existence simultaneously, all at the same time. Not just male and female or light and dark, but all of the in-betweens that exist in that line completely. It's no wonder that Baphomet has become such a idol in the trans movement. It's completely understandable. Baphomet is probably the god that opens that door better than any other entity, and allows anyone of any persuasion to feel at home. as long as you don't fear your balance, as long as you don't fear the shadow work, which is all inevitably a part of it. The angel and demon, the good and evil, it's all a spectrum, right? I think D&D did it best, right? Like when they, you've got chaotic good or neutral evil or neutral, whatever, is more accurate to kind of what life is. There is no all-powerful form of good or evil. There's no map to show you, because the good guys and the bad guys, this isn't Marvel Comics. It's not a movie. It's not, what is right and what is wrong is not so clearly drawn in the sand as we'd like to think it is. And we try to clarify these things by creating dualities, by creating very deeply drawn lines between two things to help us understand we exist in a place of duality. And Baphomet being the existence, the deification of duality, serves but one purpose: to show that there is limitation in duality, and that duality are just two ends of a spectrum, and you're only looking at the two ends and not everything in between. When you see Baphomet in vision, he doesn't soothe. He dismembers illusion, forces confrontation with paradox. I can speak from experience. Conversations with Baphomet are cryptic at best. Baphomet's torch is a fire of consciousness, not enlightenment, but illumination through pain and shadow. That's how I look at the torch that Baphomet carries. I don't look at it as enlightenment and knowledge, but rather the process of burning yourself for gnosis. And when you come to understanding of self, at that point, is where enlightenment happens. If that is the limitation that you have of Baphomet, then yeah, so be it. If that's the limited understanding that you want to give to the entity, then so be it. But we're going beyond that. We're going all the way back to the goat of Mendes. I'm sorry, but I feel that Levy's interpretation of his illustration is highly limited, because Baphomet, as the illustration is done by Levy, is only taking from the description of the Knights Templar, which at that point was a linguistic misunderstanding. So if you look at the history of goat entities, horned entities, going back through history, you can go all the way back to the goat of Mendes, probably before that. And the parallels are interesting, to say the least. Baphomet is simply a found reincarnation of what has always existed in human history as far as spirituality is concerned. So no, I think that if you read Levy's book, you're limiting yourself or your understanding of what Baphomet could be. And I think most people in this chat have already read that. So I feel coming in to a chat like this, into a podcast of this nature, and dropping a comment like that is to say underhandedly that we don't know what we're talking about and we should read Levy's interpretation of his illustration, which only goes to show, Dr. Zero, how limited your understanding of the occult is, beyond that of the academical side of things. Because if you look at the occult as only academics and reading what other people have written, you are inevitably limiting yourself to what it is that you can truly expunge from the occult. Because the occult is uncovering the hidden. It is digging deeper than what is at face value and presented to you, and looking beyond those lines. If you only read a book and then say that this is what this is, and then that's it, you're not doing the work. Reading a book only can give you so much before you actually have to step into the circle and do the work yourself and uncover the truths and gnosis that exists. To read a book is not to uncover secrets. It's to toe the line. So, continuing. Talking about the black tree. Death is not an end of the black tree, it is the foundation of it. Ancestors, decay, bones in the soil. Death is nourishment. It is revitalization. Death must occur for life to continue. This is a concept that we have understood forever. We've understood this for longer than we probably have recorded time. We've understood that death is a part of life, and inevitably we're all going to meet it. So why do most fear death? Well, most people look at death as a negotiation. And it's not. Baphomet shows us that death as a compost for becoming. It is us returning to where we've come from, where we started. Reincarnation, the idea of reincarnation, is the fact that we know that energy cannot be just destroyed. But how does energy transmutate? How does it change form? Reincarnation, in the traditional sense, is a romanticization of what actually happens, of returning to where you came from. Understanding that your energy is inevitably going back into the earth, going back into the universe. It's why some cultures look at reincarnation as you can back as a fly, or, you know, something of that nature. Because if you think about it, when you die, your body does become essentially compost. And the energy from your body, that nutrients, gets absorbed into the soil. A fruit tree, an apple tree, or an orange tree, pick the fruit of your choosing, and your energy inevitably goes into that fruit. And the fly eats that fruit, and your energy is passed through each thing that is consumed by the energy you put into everything else. So another aspect of things here, moving forward, we throw an example out. A toxic relationship dies, you feel like you're ruined. But in truth, the corpse is fertilizer for sovereignty. The pain that you've experienced and that you've gone through is something that allows you to grow more, become a better version of yourself. Spiritual death, Baphomet demands ego sacrifice, not in the Christian sense, but in killing the false self. Work with the dead, necromancy, ancestor veneration, as literal practice of rooting yourself deeper in the black tree. Baphomet teaches that when you embrace death, you cease to be controlled by fear. You live in balance. And if you're far into the past, scales tip. Too far into the future, the scales tip. But center, you can see the plane for what it is, instead of losing sight of what you need to be focusing on. Just how it is, how it works. So I think for today's episode, and further to, I want to say, further to Dr. Zero's point, if you're just starting on the path of Baphomet, I do suggest that you do look at Levy's work, because when we talk about Baphomet, we're inevitably talking about Levy's interpretation of Baphomet, his illustration of what Baphomet looks like. And it is a good starting point. But do not become limited or restricted by what one individual says something is or is not. Not even myself. If for you Baphomet is nothing more than symbolism, then so be it. But if you are able to connect to Baphomet on a level that others may ignore, then I beg you to follow that connection and allow yourself the ability to see where that connection goes. And that's with any entity. Begin your work with what people know, and then dig deeper. The occult is uncovering the hidden. And there's a lot more out there than what we are aware of. And I think that we get stuck in the perpetual cycle of working with names or venerating names that we know exist and provide results, instead of reaching into the void and seeing what comes back and truly uncovering what is there and finding new knowledge, new gnosis, and truly contributing to the expansive scape of the occult. Anyway, everyone, thank you all very much for being here. You guys are fucking amazing. You're the reason I do this, and always. Kill thy fucking self. See you in the next.